Rain tapped against the windshield, steady and patient like it had been waiting for a reason. Headlights swept across the wet asphalt, drawing long, trembling lines that broke under each passing car. The crowd moved toward the arena gates in slow waves, laughter echoing off the concrete, bouncing like small explosions in the night air. Claire hadn't said much since we left the house, and I was starting to hear everything she didn't. Her wristband caught the dashboard light flashing each time she moved her hand. She leaned forward, eyes fixed on the marquee, its glare painting her face in borrowed color. Nashville always sounded like this horns, engines music bleeding through walls, but tonight felt rehearsed like the whole city had been cast for a show we didn't know we were in. A vendor called out by the curb. Someone's radio bled the chorus from the headliner's last hit. Claire smiled faint, and practiced the kind of smile that ends things softly. She opened the door before I could say anything. The light from the arena splashed across the puddle outside, cutting her reflection clean in two. I stayed where I was, hand still resting on the gear shift, the truck idling in neutral. Through the fog, I could see her silhouette, joining the crowd, swallowed by noise and color. The first cheer rose from the arena, deep and rising, shaking the glass. The sound was alive, and it was pulling everything with it. Whatever this night was about to become, I could already feel it pressing against the glass. The roar from the arena hit before the music did. It was a living sound, thick and hot, shaking the concrete under my boots. Nashville on a Friday night never really sleeps, but that night it felt like the whole city had shown up to remember how it used to dream. Claire sat beside me in the passenger seat. When we parked, her hands already fidgeting with the silver wristband the promoter had mailed her weeks ago. She had begged me to come, said it would be fun, said we needed a night out. I had nodded and told her sure, why not. Inside, I already knew this wasn't our night. When she stepped out, the lights from Bridgestone Arena bounced off her hair. She looked younger, that kind of beauty that sneaks up on you when you realize how long it's been since you last noticed it. She smiled at me before heading toward the gates. I smiled back, but it felt borrowed. Inside, the noise wrapped around us. The crowd swayed, a sea of faces lit by blue and red beams. Tyler Ray was already on stage, guitar slung low, the voice of every radio for the last 10 years. Claire clapped like a girl at her first concert. I stood still, hands in my jacket, watching her more than the man she came to see. Halfway through a song, she turned and said something. The words drowned under the speakers, but I could read her lips. She said, "I've waited for this moment all my life." Her eyes were locked on the stage. I thought she meant the music. When Tyler asked for a fan to join him, Claire's hand shot up before the question finished. She didn't look at me. The spotlight found her bright and merciless. For a second she froze, then smiled at the guard waving her through. The crowd parted as she made her way down. I wanted to call her name, but the sound caught in my throat and went nowhere. She climbed the stairs, hesitated one beat at the edge of the stage, then walked straight to him. The screen behind them magnified everything. Tyler leaned close, said something I couldn't hear, and Claire laughed, tossing her hair like it belonged to someone who had never done dishes in her life. Then she kissed him. It wasn't a shy thing. It was a practiced, open thing, framed by lights and cameras, the kind of moment designed to go viral. Tyler's mic picked up his voice as he said it, soft, but clear enough. "Your husband's watching." The crowd exploded. Phones went up, flashes turned the air white. I felt my jaw tighten, my hands closing until the nails pressed into my palms. It hurt, but the pain was clean easier to hold than the shame spreading through me. I stood long enough to see her pull away, radiant and breathless like she had just been reborn. Then I turned and walked. No one stopped me. Maybe they thought I was just another man leaving for a smoke. Maybe they didn't see me at all. That's the strange part about betrayal. It always feels personal, but when it happens, the world barely notices. Outside, the air was cooler. Rain from earlier clung to the pavement, turning the city lights into long, trembling lines. I walked 2 blocks to the truck. The engine coughed once before settling. My hands shook only when I tried to start the wipers. Home was 30 minutes away, though I don't remember the drive. I remember the radio off the reflection of my face in the window, the faint taste of metal in my mouth. I parked in the driveway, left the headlights on a moment longer than I needed, then turned them off. Inside the house was quiet. Her coffee cup sat by the sink, half full, lipstick fading on the rim. The living room smelled faintly of her perfume. I didn't touch anything. I went straight through to the garage, the one place that still made sense. The fluorescent light buzzed as it warmed. Tools lined the wall in perfect order. On the bench lay the divorce papers I had drawn up months ago and never mailed. I had told myself then that people change, that time fixes small cracks. Maybe I had lied to myself. Maybe I just didn't want to be the man who gave up first. I took a pen from the shelf and signed where my name waited. The sound of the pen scratching was the loudest thing in the room. I placed the papers inside an envelope and set it on the bench beside her spare keys and an old USB drive I used to test sound equipment. My wedding ring slipped easily from my finger. I let it roll on the metal surface. It circled once a small, bright loop before stopping beside the keys. The sound was small, but final. I sat on the stool, elbows on my knees, watching the faint reflection of the light on that ring. I waited for anger to come. It didn't. What came was a strange calm, the kind that fills a space after something breaks and the dust hasn't settled yet. My phone vibrated. I let it ring. I didn't need to hear what she'd say. Somewhere out there, she was still under the lights, maybe realizing what she'd done, maybe not. Either way, the story had already written itself. The clock above the bench ticked steady. The sound reminded me of the night we first met, a jukebox skipping halfway through a song, her laughter echoing against cheap wood paneling. She had said, "Imperfections make things real." I used to believe her. I opened the garage door to let the air move. The city's sounds drifted in. Sirens, distant music, a car horn. Life goes on. I thought even when yours stops to count the pieces. I closed the door again. The light hummed overhead. The air smelled of oil and rain. Somewhere in the house, a pipe groaned. The quiet settled deep, heavy, but honest. I looked at the envelope one last time, then at the ring. I didn't feel loss or anger, just an understanding that some applause is meant for endings, not beginnings. Outside, dawn was just starting to lift over the trees. I turned off the lights. In the dark, the faint glow from the window fell across the bench, soft and cold. And nothing is lonelier than the sound of people cheering for the moment your life comes undone. I leaned back against the workbench and stayed there listening until the noise in my head finally faded into silence. The morning crept in pale and slow. Light leaked through the thin curtain above the garage window, brushing across the tools like a hesitant hand. The air smelled of oil and rain. I could still hear the faint hum of the refrigerator through the wall, the sound too normal for what had changed. I sat on the workbench for a long time, tracing the shape of my wedding ring's shadow on the surface where I'd left it. Outside, a dog barked. A mail truck passed, the world still working, as if nothing had come undone. By mid-morning, the video surfaced online. Shaky footage, poor angle, but clear enough. Her laughter, his voice, the kiss. The caption read, "Fan kisses Tyler Ray on stage." The comments followed like flies to honey. I watched once, maybe half of it, before I shut the screen. When I stepped outside for air, Mrs. Henderson from next door waved from her porch. Her look wasn't unkind, just careful the kind people give to wreckage after the smoke clears. I nodded. She said something about the weather, and I answered without hearing myself. The street felt narrower than before, as if every window was an eye. That evening, Claire came home. The sound of her car in the driveway made the coffee in my cup tremble. She came in talking fast voice, too high, like she was afraid of silence. She said it was just a stage moment, that the internet made everything bigger than it was. I leaned against the counter, arms folded. She paced in front of me, her perfume mixing with the smell of rain drifting through the cracked door. She said I was overreacting. I asked her if she remembered what it felt like to look me in the eye. She stopped pacing. Her breath hitched, but she didn't answer. For a second I thought she might cry, but she didn't. She just stared past me toward the hallway. I told her she should call her mother, that it might be better if she stayed there for a while. She looked at me. Then the first honest look all day. Not angry, not ashamed, just tired. She went upstairs, came down with a suitcase, and left without closing the door all the way. The wind caught it after she drove off, leaving it half open. I closed it myself. The sound of the latch was the only thing that felt definite. The next morning, I met Joanne Briggs. Her office sat above a coffee shop downtown, the kind that smelled of cinnamon and burnt espresso. She was waiting when I arrived, sleeves rolled, hair pinned back, eyes sharp as glass. She asked if I wanted coffee. I said no. I already had too much bitterness for one day. She didn't smile, but the corner of her mouth twitched. We sat across from each other. She took notes as I spoke. When I paused, she said things that sounded like commands, but carried no judgment. "We will keep this lawful, no statements, no noise, just documentation and outcomes." Her steadiness steadied me. I told her about the small investment I'd made months ago in the production company behind Tyler Ray's tour. 5%, nothing more. She stopped writing and looked up. "So the stage she climbed was partly yours," she said, her tone unreadable. "That changes leverage, not your character." She gave me a yellow notepad before I left. "Keep a ledger. Chaos hates straight lines." The sun had dropped by the time I got home. The house was empty, the silence thick, but not heavy. I cleared a space on the workbench, turned on the old lamp, and began sorting files. Emails, receipts, photos, small pieces of a truth that would need to stay intact. I copied them onto the same USB drive from before, the one I'd labeled Stage Org. Before setting it down, I wiped the dust from its surface, slow and careful, like preserving something sacred. The clock ticked in the kitchen. I made coffee again and let it sit untouched. Steam curled once, then vanished. I thought of Eli, my son, away at school. I picked up my phone, thumb hovering over his name. For a moment I wanted to call him to tell him I was fine, that everything was under control. But that would have been a lie. I set the phone back down. My hand lingered there, trembling slightly before I pulled it away. A car passed outside headlights, sweeping across the garage window. For an instant the ring on the bench caught the light flashing like a signal before fading again. I opened the notepad Joanne had given me. The paper was thick, uncreased, patient. I wrote the date, then one word beneath it. Beginning. The pen's tip scratched against the paper, a sound small but certain. My hand hesitated halfway through the word. I looked at it, saw a faint tremor under the skin, and let the pen fall still. Somewhere in the house, the refrigerator hummed again, steady as breathing. It was the same sound as yesterday, but now it carried meaning. Proof that life in its ordinary rhythm can keep going beside the ruins. I closed the notebook and placed it beside the USB. The air smelled faintly of coffee gone cold. I turned off the lamp, letting darkness settle around the small pool of metal and paper on the bench. For a long moment I just sat there, hands resting on my knees, listening. The quiet was not empty this time. It held something fragile but alive, a beginning that no one else could see yet. The rain hadn't stopped for 2 days. It fell in thin lines across the window, soft but unrelenting. The garage smelled of steel and damp air. I sat at the workbench, tracing the edge of the notepad Joanne had given me. The word beginning stared back from the page, half faded under a ring of coffee. A car horn echoed from the street. The newspaper lay on the step, heavy with rain. I picked it up, shook it once, and saw her name in bold print. A teacher from Davidson County kisses country star Tyler Ray on stage. The photo was grainy, her smile blurred by flash. Still, it was her. Still, it was enough. By noon, every station had picked it up. When I went out for parts, a small TV behind the counter played her interview. The talk show set glowed in pastel colors. Claire sat across from the host, legs crossed, voice too bright. She said it was fun, a wild moment, nothing more. The host laughed and called her spontaneous. The audience clapped. The clerk behind this counter smiled awkwardly. Said that your wife? I said she used to be. Then I paid and walked out. When I got back, Joanne called. Her tone was even, but her words landed with precision. Narratives harden like concrete. We don't let them pour the mold for us. I'm filing discovery requests with the production company. Let the facts breathe. I told her thank you. She didn't respond, just exhaled softly before hanging up. That evening, Mason stopped by the garage. The rain had slowed to a mist, and his truck idled by the curb like it didn't want to be there either. He used to work with me in sound back when I still mixed live shows. He stood in the doorway, hands deep in his jacket pockets. He said Claire had reached out weeks before the concert, said she emailed the PR team, dropped my name, used my client list to get into the VIP pool. His eyes didn't meet mine. He said he thought it was harmless, that he didn't expect it to go that far. I didn't answer right away. I wiped grease off my hands with an old rag, folded it once, then set it on the bench. You told me now, I said. That counts for something. He nodded, half relieved, half guilty. When he left, I watched the red glow of his taillights dissolve into the rain. The sound of his truck faded until it was just the clock again ticking in the kitchen beyond the wall. The house was quiet that night. I made coffee, forgot to drink it. Steam rose, then disappeared. The rhythm of the refrigerator filled the room. I'd learned to trust that sound. It meant life was still happening somewhere, even if not here. Eli came home 2 days later. I heard his car before I saw him, the muffler still rattling like an empty can. He walked into the garage, taller, sharper eyes, too old for his age. He didn't hug me. He just looked around, then at me. He asked if it was true. It is, I said. He stood there for a moment, jaw tight. Asked if I hated her. No, I said. Hate burns fast. This is slower. More like rust. He looked away. His hand brushed the side of the old Mustang we'd worked on together years ago. The metal was cold and smooth, and for a moment I thought he might say something else. Instead, he asked if love could survive humiliation. Love, might I said. Respect rarely does. He didn't respond. just nodded once and walked upstairs. Later, I heard him playing his guitar, the same 4 chords repeating over and over. The notes were rough, hesitant, but honest. The kind that make you stop moving just to listen. I sat at the table, the cup of coffee still untouched, and let the sound fill the house. It was the first music I'd heard that didn't hurt. The next morning, an email from Joanne arrived. The production company had acknowledged her notice. Discovery was moving forward. It meant the truth, at least on paper, would have a place to stand. That evening, Claire called. Her voice came through thin and sharp, like it was traveling across broken glass. She said the school district had put her on leave. Said people were judging her, twisting things. She called it persecution. I told her it was procedure. Silence stretched between us until the line clicked off. I sat by the window afterward, watching the light outside shift from gray to amber. The street lamps flickered on one by one until their reflections shimmered across the wet pavement. On the counter beside me, the old key ring caught the light. Her spare car key, still attached, glinted faintly. I picked it up, felt the cool metal against my palm, then set it back down. There was nothing left to unlock. The clock ticked again. Rain began to fall softly against the glass. The house exhaled in its familiar rhythm. I turned off the light and let the room go dark. In the quiet, the rain and the clock kept time together. I realized I didn't need to speak to be heard. The silence itself had already said enough. The morning light came cold and blue through the blinds. The rain had stopped, but the air still smelled of it, a faint trace of wet asphalt drifting in from the street. The coffee sat cooling beside the notepad on my kitchen table. The word beginning still written across the top line in my own uneven hand. Joanne called before 8. I could tell she had something by the way she said my name. Her voice was calm, deliberate, like she'd rehearsed it once already. She said she'd been digging through the artist contracts from the production company. There was a clause halfway down the legal stack, one I hadn't noticed before. A morality clause. It bound all performers and partners to avoid any act that could damage investors or sponsors. It didn't govern Claire directly, but it governed the stage she stood on and the man she kissed. She said she'd file everything through the proper channels. It would move quietly, without noise, without malice. I told her to proceed. That morning, a local radio station played Tyler Ray's new single. Halfway through the song, cut off mid-line, the DJ came on voice tight, saying there'd been a change in sponsorship programming. The silence that followed felt heavier than the music ever had. By the afternoon, Joanne confirmed it. Sponsors had started to withdraw their campaigns. The label suspended the tour's promotions. One of the brands pulled every ad tied to that concert. The news didn't make me proud. It didn't even make me feel vindicated. It just made the air quieter. Joanne sent a file that evening. It was an internal audio clip from the stage crew, time-stamped and unedited. Tyler's voice, half whisper, half laugh. This will get us trending. It was enough to trigger the morality clause, enough to make the sponsors panic, not enough to ruin him completely. In America, justice rarely arrives all at once. It comes in fragments that shift the balance of things piece by piece. Claire's new partnerships collapsed overnight. The influencer deals, the endorsements that had called her brave for her moment, were suddenly gone. Nobody accused her of wrongdoing. They just stopped calling. Companies don't seek villains, they avoid noise. That Friday near dusk, she came to the garage. The floor was clean. The air smelled of rubber and oil. I was adjusting a carburetor when I saw her reflection in the side mirror. She stood at the doorway for a long time before she spoke. "What did you do to me?" I put the wrench down and turned to face her. I submitted facts through lawyers, I said. The rest is gravity. Her breath hitched. She stepped closer, her eyes searching the room like she was looking for an escape hatch. You let me fall? I told her I didn't let her fall. I stopped holding her up. She flinched as if I'd struck her. Then her shoulders dropped the fight, leaving her voice. It's not fair, she said. You hid behind paperwork while I took the blow. Fairness isn't a weapon, I said. It's a weight. We both carry it. She went still for a moment. Then she asked if I could ever forgive her. Her question hung between us. For a second I thought I might lie. Forgiveness isn't a key, I said quietly. It's a door that doesn't open from this side. Her eyes glistened. She looked down at the floor, then back up at me. The woman who once hummed while cooking stood there now like someone lost inside her own story. After a moment, she turned away. The sound of her shoes across the concrete echoed against the walls until the door closed and left only the hum of the fluorescent light. I stayed in the garage long after she left. The air felt still heavy with something that wasn't quite peace. The clock ticked on the far wall. Each sound felt deliberate, measured like a slow reminder that time keeps moving whether or not we do. That night, I couldn't sleep. I walked through the house, touching the edges of things I hadn't noticed in months. The chipped coffee mug on the counter, the jacket still hanging behind the door, a faint ring of dust where her perfume bottles used to sit. Every object carried a kind of quiet evidence. The phone rang just past 10. Joanne again. Her tone was careful but softer now. She said the fallout had deepened. Sponsors were requesting statements. The label was preparing to cut ties with the event organizer. There might be settlements, maybe hearings. She said she was handling it. I asked her if any of this really mattered. Sometimes, she said, the point isn't who wins. It's who stays standing when the noise fades. After we hung up, I sat in the dark for a while, the hum of the refrigerator behind me, the sound of distant traffic outside. The night pressed close, not unkind, just there. I thought of what she'd said. Dignity and bitterness sound the same when they speak in your voice. You only know which one you're carrying when you try to set it down. Outside, the wind moved through the wet trees. A slow whisper, low and steady, that sounded almost like relief. The wind faded through the wet trees and left the world quiet again. Morning came pale and cool, slipping through the garage window and laying soft light across the workbench. The clock ticked slow on the wall, steady as a heartbeat that refused to rush. The smell of oil and dust clung to the air. My coffee had gone cold, its surface flat and still. Work steadied me. A '67 Mustang waited with its hood open, the body sun-faded and scratched like an old memory. I thought I knew that engine as well as I knew my own name, but certainty is a trick the mind plays on tired men. I missed the alignment on the timing chain. When the motor choked and fell silent, I knew it before I heard it. The customer stood behind me, his arms folded, trying not to look disappointed. I told him I'd fix it. My voice stayed calm. I stripped it down again, reset the chain tooth by tooth until the lines met right. The next ignition purred like it remembered how to breathe. I told him there would be no charge. My mistake, my responsibility. He looked at me for a long moment, the kind of look that carries more respect than words. Then he nodded and drove off. The tailpipe smoke hung in the cold air before disappearing. Eli stayed behind after his shift, a wrench in one hand, his old guitar in the other. He didn't sing. He just played soft, unfinished notes that hung between us like something almost said. The music wasn't perfect, but it was honest. He asked if I wanted the radio on. I shook my head. We worked in silence, the clock ticking the guitar, breathing its quiet story. When he packed up, I wiped my hands on a rag. He hesitated by the door, eyes still on the guitar case. "You don't say much, Dad, but you fix things right." I let out a slow breath. Maybe that was enough. That night I went to the church basement on the east side where a group of veterans met on Thursdays. The coffee there was burnt and strong, the kind that scours the tongue. Metal chairs scraped the concrete floor as men settled in. No one asked questions. We just sat in the hum of an old fluorescent light. One man said, "Some wars buy you silence you can spend later." The room went still. I didn't speak. I let the silence sit with me heavy, but not cruel. Driving home, the roads were slick from new rain. Mason called. His voice carried that quiet kind of guilt you can hear before it forms words. He asked if he could stop by. He arrived with his shoulders drawn tight, hands deep in his jacket pockets. The smell of wet air followed him into the garage. He stood there under the pale light eyes, tired. He said he had arranged the VIP list for the concert, said she begged, said he thought it was harmless. His voice cracked a little when he said he never imagined it would end up on camera on a stage in every living room with a screen. I wiped my hands again, slower this time. The harm didn't arrive that night, I told him. It started when the first line blurred, when no one stopped it. Harm travels slow, but it never gets lost. He nodded, staring at the floor. A long moment passed before he spoke again. He asked if I was angry. I told him I didn't have space for anger and order at the same time. He adjusted his cap, stepped out into the rain, and left without another word. Back inside the garage felt empty in a familiar way. The tools were quiet, the air still holding the smell of rain and motor oil. The silence wasn't comforting, but it wasn't cruel either. Later, a text from Claire lit the kitchen. She said she felt invisible living with her mother in Chattanooga. Said the quiet there was unbearable. I typed a reply, one sentence about how she had chosen visibility on stage, then erased it. Some truths don't heal. They just reopen the wound. The next morning, I opened the safe in the closet. The metal felt cold under my palm. Inside was the old USB sitting beside a stack of receipts and an extra car title. It held every file, every frame, the original proof. I turned it over in my hand. Knowing I had it didn't comfort me. It reminded me of who I could become if I let bitterness dress itself up as dignity. The house was still. I could hear the clock ticking in the hall, the hum of the refrigerator, the faint sound of a truck passing 2 streets over. I thought about what one of the veterans had said about silence being a kind of currency. Maybe this was how you spend it. I placed the USB back in the safe, turned the dial until the latch clicked, soft and final. Then I stood still, my reflection faint in the metal door. By the afternoon, work had called me back. A pickup needed brakes, a minivan needed a belt, things I could fix with my hands and time. Machines admit when they're broken. People take longer. Eli came by again, his hair damp from the rain. He tuned his guitar, careful and patient. He played something new, steadier this time, and I realized he was writing his own kind of forgiveness. He asked if I was going back to the group next week. I said I was. He nodded, eyes on the strings. Maybe I'll come too. We stayed there until the light faded and the garage turned gold and then gray. I switched off the lights one by one, each click a small ending. The air outside smelled of wet leaves and gasoline. In the kitchen, I poured out the cold coffee and rinsed the mug. The ink on my notepad had blurred a little where the cup had rested. Beneath the word beginning, I wrote 2 more words. Make right. I watched the ink dry under the kitchen light. Outside, frost began to gather on the window pane, thin and quiet. The house breathed around me, soft, steady, alive. The house creaked as it settled into the quiet before dawn. The window glass was pale with frost, and the hum of the refrigerator filled the spaces where thoughts used to live. I poured coffee that had already cooled and watched the steam fade too quickly. The clock in the hallway ticked steady, keeping time for me when I no longer could. Joanne arrived just after sunrise, coat folded over one arm, files balanced against her hip. She set them down on the table and let out a breath that sounded measured, like someone preparing for weather they couldn't control. We drove downtown with no radio, just the sound of the tires whispering across damp asphalt. The courthouse waited gray and still, its steps worn down by years of stories just like mine. Inside, the air smelled like paper and polish, the kind of air that made you straighten your back without thinking. The courtroom was warm but dry. A bailiff cleared his throat, and the echo felt louder than it should. Joanne leaned close and spoke softly enough that only I could hear. "We will speak in facts," she said. "Order isn't the enemy of mercy." I nodded. That was all I had left anyway. Claire sat at the other table, her hair tied back, her fingers twisting a pen that didn't write anymore. Her attorney sat beside her, calm and practiced. For a brief second, when the judge entered, I saw her glance toward me, and in her eyes there was something almost familiar. It passed as quickly as breath. Her attorney spoke first. He painted a picture with broad strokes: an unhappy marriage, a spontaneous moment, a husband too rigid to forgive. His words were smooth-shaped for sympathy. He gestured with a flat hand, steady but rehearsed. I could feel the story forming around me, one I didn't recognize, but had no wish to interrupt. Then Joanne stood. Her voice was low, calm, and unhurried. "Tennessee follows equitable distribution, Your Honor. Character matters when considering support. Punishment has no place in this courtroom." She turned a page, the sound sharp and clean. She spoke about financial conduct, about reputational harm to a small business that bore one man's name. The judge nodded, pen suspended in the air. Joanne opened the folder and laid out the pages one by one. The paper made a soft slap against the table each time it met the wood sign. Emails, first dates, addresses, subject lines. Claire's requests for VIP access through my contacts. My investment documents, proof of my quiet involvement in the production company. Then letters from sponsors citing their decision to pause partnerships under the morality clause. Claire's attorney objected twice, both times on relevance. The judge allowed the evidence without a word. Silence filled the space where tension had been. When it was Claire's turn, her attorney shifted tone. He spoke of public humiliation, of the cruelty of the internet, of a woman who had already suffered enough. He said I had weaponized business contracts to punish emotion. He said this was not betrayal, only a spark fanned by gossip. He asked for alimony. He asked for mercy dressed as fairness. Joanne stood again, her hands steady on the lectern. She didn't argue. She simply turned another page, read what was printed there, and let the words hang in the room. The truth didn't need volume. It needed space. The judge's expression stayed unreadable. His pen moved, stopped, moved again. I stared at the floor, at the way light from the window stretched across it in a single, unbroken line. For the first time, I felt the weight of stillness, not as punishment, but as balance. During recess, I stood by the window in the hallway. Outside, a food truck sent up steam, the smell of coffee mixing with cold air. Joanne brought me a cup without asking and stood beside me. She said the path was straight, if not easy. I told her I wasn't looking for easy. She smiled, a quiet thing, and checked her watch. When we went back in, the judge spoke with the patience of someone who had said these things before. He ruled that the garage, its tools, and all intellectual property would remain mine. He denied alimony, citing voluntary conduct that affected income. The rest of the assets would be divided equally. His voice carried no judgment, only closure. It wasn't victory. It was order. And order was enough. Claire turned toward me, her eyes rimmed red but clear. She stepped closer, just inside the echo of her attorney's shoes. Her voice was quiet, almost fragile. "Did you ever love me?" "Yes," I said. And I still refused to lie about what happened. She nodded once, then looked away. Her thumb brushed the edge of the table, tracing its groove. Then she left, the sound of her heels fading down the hall. Joanne gathered her files carefully. "We're done here," she said. "Need anything?" I shook my head. "Just a place with bad coffee and no television." She smiled, no teeth this time, and we walked down the courthouse steps. The wind caught the flag halfway up the pole. The sunlight was sharp, but cold, the kind that shows everything and warms nothing. I stood there for a while, breathing air that didn't taste like defense anymore. That weekend, Eli played a small set at a veterans fundraiser in the community gym. The air smelled like floor wax and old sweat. He tuned his guitar near the bleachers, eyes calm, movements slow. When he played, it wasn't loud. It was steady, his voice unshaken. People listened without talking. They didn't cheer for spectacle. They stayed for sincerity. When he stepped down, he passed me and set the guitar case beside the wall. He asked if court went like I wanted. It went how it should, I said. He nodded, thoughtful. He said he was proud, though he didn't say of what. I put a hand on his shoulder and left it there until the lights dimmed one bulb at a time. The sound of chairs folding echoed through the gym, hollow and human. The next morning, I was back in the garage. Same clock ticking. Same smell of oil. The ring still sat on the shelf where I'd left it, catching a thread of sunlight that reached through the bay door. I looked at it for a long time, then slid it into the drawer with the spare keys. The metal clinked softly. Outside, the wind shifted, pushing a cardboard scrap across the alley. Somewhere, a train horn sounded long and low, fading toward the horizon. I stood there, hands still, and for once I didn't think about what came next. The air felt clear. The silence stayed. Morning loosened the dark 1 inch at a time. The bay door lifted and spilled a pale band of light across the concrete. Dust turned slow in it, like snow that had forgotten how to fall. The clock on the wall kept its patient measure. The air smelled of cold steel and last night's rain. I stood there with my hands in my pockets and listened to the building breathe. We changed the sign that week. A crew backed in before 9 ladders, clattering, a coil of cable thudding to the ground. New letters waited on a blanket, still a little warm from the cutter-sharp edges, throwing off a clean shine. The paint smelled faintly sweet. When the wind pressed against the panel, the metal answered with a low tremor, as if testing the weight of its new name. Preston Auto Works and Training. I read it under my breath, and it felt like speaking to a future that was just close enough to hear. Eli stood beside me with a roll of blue tape hanging from his wrist. The drill bit into the facade, and the sound went straight through my ribs. Cars hissed along Gallatin. A bus sighed at the light, a siren stretched and faded toward the river. When the last bolt tightened, the letters settled on their brackets, and lay still. The crew chief gave me a thumbs up, and we shook hands like men who had traded something more than work. The wind came again lighter this time, and the sign did not move. To fund the training, I sold the motorcycle I once thought defined me. A man from Clarksville counted bills on my desk, his thumb wetting the corners, the paper making a dry whisper. The key was warm in my palm when I handed it over. He looked at the bike like a mirror that flattered him, then rolled it into the street and cracked the throttle once. When the engine's note thinned and vanished at the corner, the office felt larger. I could hear the clock without looking at it. The first apprentices came quiet, shoulders squared by habit eyes, measuring exits and tools. We started on brakes and belts. Work that teaches rhythm before finesse. Eli laid out parts on clean towels and showed them a ledger he had copied by hand. Write it like the truth, he said, and put the wrench back where your hand expects to find it. Evenings, while the compressor thumped like a metronome in the next bay, he set a small amp on the loading dock and recorded demos into a handheld unit. The cone glowed warm and threw a soft square of light across my glasses. The songs were spare. They sounded like someone deciding to stay. Mason texted the day after the sign went up. The message was short. The apology had been practiced, then pared down to what he could carry. I called him back. He said he was sorry again. I told him good men make bad calls, and better men keep receipts of them. He laughed once and looked at the ground before leaving the box of donuts on the bench. He said he was learning to keep both. We talked about brake dust and the old board tape I kept in a drawer. When he left, he adjusted his cap at the door and stepped into the light rain like a man who knew what weather he was choosing. An email from Claire arrived before sunrise 2 days later. The subject line was a plain greeting. She wrote that she had resigned rather than wait out the district review. The community center on the south side had taken her on. She was teaching rhythm to hearing-impaired kids. They feel the bass through the floor, she wrote, and they smile when the room vibrates. For a moment, I pictured the planks under her shoes, humming with a note that needed no translation, a steady human pulse. I wrote back 7 words. I wish you steady days and health. Then I closed the laptop and let the message belong to its own air. The shop learned a new tempo. One man could hear a failing bearing in the way a steering column hummed at idle. Another found the tension in a serpentine belt by touch alone. I showed them the habit of clean hands before lunch and dirty hands after, and how both were part of honest work. The smell of solvent mixed with cut pine from the workbench's new wood giving up its first layer. At noon, a train horn from the east cut the day into 2 even parts and left a quiet seam between them. On Tuesday, a woman from the community center called. Her voice held the clipped energy of someone carrying more than one job. She asked if we could donate a tire change for their raffle. I said we would do better and send a short demonstration torque and safety 15 minutes and questions after. She went quiet, then thanked me twice. When I hung up, I thought of Claire again, of bass rolling under thin shoes, and kids learning to count by feeling. That afternoon, clouds shouldered in from the west. Eli tuned his guitar on the dock, the small red light on the amp blinking between breaths. The amplifier's glow picked up in the lenses of my glasses and held there like a second sun. He played a progression that did not ask to be noticed. I stood inside the threshold, the compressor idle, and listened to air move around a sound that knew its size. He said the songs were not about us. He said they were about staying with the work when the work is hard. He said it like a man telling himself the truth and letting the room hear it. Paper came from the court at week's end. Heavy stock, clean edges, the kind that sits square in your hand. The orders were final, in the tone that law uses when it is done naming things. I signed the copy Joanne sent, scanned it, and slid the original into a folder that had waited on the shelf longer than it should have. The folder made a soft click when it met the others. I let my palm rest there until the heat left it. That night, Nashville did what Nashville does. It lit itself without asking permission. From the alley, the glow looked like weather again. Bright, passing beyond my control. I found that I liked it better that way. The quiet here belonged to me. The noise belonged to the city. Each carried its own weight. One of the veterans stopped me after we finished torque specs. He said the compressor's rhythm made his head feel honest for an hour. He said he had not slept through the night in years. He said he wanted to pay for the class and could only manage a little. Buy coffee for the room on Thursday, I said, and call us square. He smiled with gaps where teeth had been pried still, where pride belonged. He asked if we would ever tear an engine to the block. Yes, I said. Not today. Soon. Later, I found the old key ring on my desk. Her spare car key still hung there, small and exact, more shape than use. I took it off the ring, slid it into an envelope, and wrote her name and a return address I had not traced in a long time. I sealed it and set it by the door. The room did not change, but I felt a hinge give in the air. The month turned its page. Motorcycles left the lot, and sedans took their places. The apprentices learned to write their names in the ledger with a pen that did not skip. We sold tools I had kept for memory more than function, and dropped the bills into a lockbox labeled Training. The box grew heavier by quarters. No weight at all at first, then a weight you notice when you move it. Mason came by again with another receipt, and the kind of small talk that lets a man stay in a room without asking to be forgiven. We stood by the bench and ate sugar that had crusted over the stale donuts. He said the sign looked right at night. I said it looked older than it should for its age. He nodded like a man who understands how work assigns years in its own math. At closing, the shop fell into the kind of hush that belongs to rooms that will be needed again. I cut the lights one by one and stood at the door for a breath before turning the last switch. The new metal letters outside gave off a faint smell of heat and paint in the cooling air. The wind pressed them once, as if checking its work, then moved on. Inside the office, the amp's small glow from the dock flickered against the window and laid a moving square across my desk. I slid the old ring into the drawer with spare fuses and the good pens. The drawer closed with a soft slide. The night was neither loud nor kind, just honest. I rested my palm on the desk until the wood stopped holding heat. Outside, leaves moved without interest in my story. The clock clicked once on the wall and kept going untroubled and sure. I breathed and felt the room keep pace, a life reassembled from small parts that finally fit. The last note. Light spread slow across the workbench, thin and deliberate. Dust turned in it like quiet snow, unhurried, unsure whether to fall. The clock on the wall kept its beat steady as breath. The smell of oil and old pine hung in the air. The garage didn't need me to move. It knew the rhythm by now. 5 years had passed without ceremony. The shop grew in quiet ways, depth instead of width. Veterans brought their sons' tools changed hands, lessons repeated until they became instinct. The compressor still thumped its slow pulse through the walls, the same rhythm that once carried through Eli's songs. Ordinary had learned how to hold meaning. That evening I parked outside Bridgestone Arena headlights cutting across wet asphalt. The same building that once carried a noise that tore something out of me now waited calm and bright for a benefit concert we helped sponsor. The letters on the marquee trembled in the breeze. I sat in the truck a moment, feeling the hum of the engine die under my hand. The air outside had that electric quiet before sound begins. Inside, the lights were soft. No fireworks, no spectacle. Just a clean stage and a crowd that came to listen. Eli stood under the pale wash of light. Hands steady, face calm. When he sang, his voice carried the warmth of an engine idling after a long drive. The song was about staying when leaving is easy, about mending what still works. People listened, not because he shouted, because he meant it. When the applause came, it sounded human. Small, honest. I stood beside sponsors I once feared. They nodded at me with the recognition that only steady work earns. I realized then that the world never needed me loud, only reliable. Justice, maybe, is built the same way. After the show, Eli found me near the loading doors. His shirt was damp at the collar, his smile quiet. He asked how it sounded. I told him it sounded earned. He looked away, then nodded the way men do when they have nothing to fix in a sentence. Driving home Nashville felt smaller. The lights along the interstate looked like slow-moving stars, unbothered by who watched them. The shop sign glowed when I turned onto Gallatin, the metal letters catching the reflection of the passing cars. Preston Auto Works and Training. It stood like it belonged neither proud nor tired. At home, I opened the safe. The metal gave way with a click that echoed in the small room. Inside was the black USB marked Stage Orig. Its label had faded at the corners. I held it between my fingers. It was light, almost weightless, yet it could still redraw everything if I wanted it to. I turned it once, letting the light slide along its edge. For a while I just sat there listening to the house settle. The heat in the vents shifted and sighed a slow human sound. The quiet felt alive. I thought about erasing the file, but I didn't. Some truths deserve to sleep where they are. I placed the USB back in its envelope, closed the safe, and turned the key until the lock caught. The sound was small, but complete. In the silence that followed, I felt something settle inside me, too. A space where noise had been. A peace that didn't need applause. The next morning brought a letter from Chattanooga. Claire's handwriting was smaller than I remembered, clean and patient. Inside was a photograph. A circle of children hands, pressed flat on a wooden platform, eyes closed, feeling rhythm through the floor. Beneath it, a note written in blue ink. They heard us. I read it twice, maybe 3 times. The morning light crossed the table slow as a second thought. I believed her. That evening I brewed coffee and carried it to the porch. The cup was warm in my hand, the air cool on my face. Across the yard, the wind combed through the trees. A train sounded from the river bend, long and low, the kind of sound that doesn't ask to be noticed, but stays anyway. I thought about what I had lost, and it no longer felt sharp. The USB was locked away, the court papers filed, the anger gone quiet. What stayed were smaller things. The smell of motor oil, the steady hum of tools, a son who sang without shortcuts, a name that didn't need defending. Some men chase justice. I learned to build it slow and lawful, one piece at a time, sometimes by saying nothing when words would only make it less. The light sank toward evening gold, turning to gray. Across the yard, the garage windows caught the last of it, metal letters glowing a moment before fading into dusk. The air held the scent of rain and cut grass. I let the coffee cool in my palm, the warmth lingering longer than I expected. A truck passed on the road beyond the trees, its headlights flashing across the porch. The sound faded, leaving the air clean. The house breathed once and went still again. Somewhere faint and clear, a song played from a local station. Eli's voice carried through the static, gentle sure. The last note held longer than I expected, stretching just enough to find me where I sat. The world was quiet enough to hear it.